Now let's deal with this thing about the ANC's attitude towards political parties that are wrongly suggested to be ideologically similar to the ANC. Let me start with a brief history. When we lost the metros in 2016, the EFF's condition for forming government was that the ANC must remove Jacob Zuma as its president. So this Ramaphosa removal thing is not new. It's not some innovative thing. It was started by the EFF when we told them to go jump. And the reason is simple. Suppose I wake up one day and I say, I've left the ANC, I've formed an organization called Orlando Pirates. And this political party called Orlando Pirates comes to the ANC and says, we will only go into coalition with you if you remove your 50-50 gender policy in the constitution. The day the ANC amends its constitution in order to save its electoral fortunes, it is no longer the ANC. The ANC is not this thing. It's not this thing written here, these colors. It's not these 3 people here or whatever number of members we say the ANC is. The ANC is an idea. And anything that departs from the idea of the ANC is not the ANC. And it is not ideologically similar to the ANC. There's no political party that says, as a police, we must round up young, teenage, pregnant girls and put them in Robben Island that can be accused of being like the ANC. It's not. Because that organization assumes that teenage pregnancy is a function of some deficiency on the part of young women. Not like the ANC. That organization represents counter-revolution as far as the ANC is concerned. The ANC's idea on constitutionalism was written down in 1923. It went in 1943 to the African Claims Charter. In 1955, it went to the Freedom Charter. In 1986, it went to the Constitutional Principles. In 1989, it went to the Congress for a Democratic Future. In 1993, it went to the Transitional Constitution. It got cemented in the 96 Constitution. Constitutionalism is a foundational philosophy of the ANC because it believes on the egalitarian principle that no government can justly govern people not based on the will of the people. Now, an organization that says we must overthrow constitutionalism and replace it with an arrangement where the sovereign authority of the state must be concentrated in unelected kings is not like the ANC.
Or even in parliament.
Or that, because the ANC's preoccupation is not winning at all cost elections. We argue that elections only animate the strength of particular ideas in the population. And that there's a relationship between the popularity of particular revolutionary ideas with the performance of the economy. And that when the economy is falling, the Republican ideal that is the ANC gets undermined. So that the reactionary parties who believe that we must overthrow constitutionalism suddenly gain popular support electorally. So the threat is not to the ANC, the political party. The threat is to the idea of a republic that the ANC is about. There are political parties that if they were to gain a majority in South Africa, some of the things you take for granted as guaranteed, they would be a thing of the past. So the ANC cannot consign itself to that arrangement to aid counter-revolution to have an upper hand in South Africa. By the way, in our discussion document, we make the point that all these political parties in the South African political system are a threat to the Republican cause that the ANC is about, including the DA, by the way. The DA's opposition to affirmative action must not be treated as a technicality. It's a philosophical objection to the principles of constitutional egalitarianism. It does not believe in equality. But they use the Constitution selectively to reinforce the positions that they hold on to. All of them. DA, EFF, MK Party, and everyone. MK Party goes to court when they are pursuing a cause, but they don't believe that the judiciary must have the sovereign authority to arbitrate on disputes. They say it themselves. So the ANC does not have a natural ally in the South African political system. Let's take the land question. If I say, as Orlando Pirates political party, land must be returned to black people on the one hand.
Maybe use as a chief staff.
No. I want people to understand. If I say on the one hand, land must be returned to black people, you will say that, well, that's what the ANC historically said. But if the subtext says, only black people who are men must have the right to have land, is that the same thing? So you've got to come beyond the superficial rhetoric that these parties are running on the basis of. Dig deep to how they elaborate their policy perspective.
In their manifesto.
Their manifesto, they give you a ruse as an opening statement, but they substantiate it with reactionary politics.
Yeah.
So the idea that they use blackness as a mobilizing theme does not mean that they are pursuing a progressive blackness that the ANC talks about. The ANC is in the GNU not because it thinks those parties in the GNU have anything to do with it. It's a matter of political strategy. The ANC got 40% in the electorate, in the vote. It controls 70% of the executive. Tell me that is not a strategic coup. But if the ANC had gone into a coalition with one political party, it would have been forced into an arrangement where there is a 50-50 control of the executive. So whose policies were going to dominate in that arrangement? So the ANC cannot surrender itself to any political party in the name of some populist gesturing that, no, these ones are more progressive than the others. The whole lot of them are reactionary. But the degrees of their reactionary politics, they vary. Because none of them is committed to the Republican cause that the ANC is about. Now, what does this have to do with the national dialogue? Makura makes a point. The day the 42% that does not vote grows to 55%, they are going to ban all of us, regardless of logo. It's not going to matter who sits in Stellenbosch, who sits in Pretoria East or West. We're all going to die. So the national dialogue is about making all the other stakeholders to understand that their obsession with exclusive accumulation is a danger to them as well. Someone sent a question here saying we must answer why the private sector controls 42 billion or something, why are we not telling them to invest? That's part of what the national dialogue is about. When we make the argument that a trillion, something like that, yes. When we make the argument that South Africa's national savings must be utilized to finance economic transformation, it's not some lunatic ideas in the heads of a Zuko Godlimpi. It's the recognition that there is an imbalanced distribution of economic resources in South Africa, and that if we don't collapse, we need those who are controlling those resources to come to the party. That's what the social compact is about. So the social compact is not about the ANC's manifesto. It is about different social partners agreeing on a common vision and accepting particular tasks that they must fulfill. Not to relegate the problems of South Africa to the ANC in government. That's what the social compact is about.
Yeah.
The GNU is a political arrangement. It's not a social compact. The social compact is about including those who are not in political parties but who are major stakeholders in how South Africa is directed, that they've got to come. So I thought I must answer these questions in this manner. The ANC is not avoiding any political party for bitterness and so on, no. Or afraid of any. I've heard this thing that some political parties are going to overwhelm us, what. I will make the arrogant claim on behalf of the ANC that there is none of political parties in South Africa that can match the ANC intellectually, ideologically, politically, and organizationally. It doesn't matter how much they delude themselves. The difference is that some of them are being given a disproportionate amount of airtime on the South African megaphone. And then the illusion is reproduced that they are thinking and speaking alone. It's not true. Take any major question of policy in South Africa. Take the best of their spokespersons. Tell them to choose if they want to debate that with the ANC and see who's going to come second best. So we don't fear anybody. When there's a particular political party that runs around saying they're in charge of government, don't believe them. If you believe them, it's your own choice. But in reality, the ANC is in control of government in a manner that is far above what it got in the elections. So the ANC cannot be dictated to how it must approach its strategy by opposition parties. We don't have to prove ourselves by coddling any political party. We must go hack a particular political party so that we prove that we're revolutionary on the basis of what? Can't do it. We will not hug them, we will not beg them, we will not even beg the DA. That GNU, we structured it the way it does so that if they want to walk, they can walk. But if they are committed to the idea of a common stabilization program of South Africa's political system, they will not go. Now, don't listen to one person who goes to podcasts and media interviews and says things that don't exist. Undermines all other political parties. Says, no, this thing is just two parties. If it were two parties, they would have like 20 ministers. They have 6. They have 6.
And they will dictate many other
Then they will
things.
dictate all manner of things. I'm saying we've got to understand these things in proper context, not because one person spoke. I can't wake up tomorrow and say, no, my name is Zuko Godlimpi, I'm a light-skinned person. And then it's the truth. I'm not going to be light-skinned because I claim to be. Or that I identify as light-skinned. You know, I'm telling the truth. It doesn't work. So let's be quite serious. Let's be serious. Don't take people at their word when they are making ludicrous claims. There's no party that can just say it's a partnership between the two. The DA has 6, the IFP has how many? 3 or 2 ministers. So at what point do we say they don't exist in the GNU? PAC has a minister, something that they've never had. In what world do you render it non-existent because Mrs. Zille claims that they don't matter? The GNU as it stands was the most strategic maneuver by the ANC in order to turn an electoral setback into a strategic advantage. Any other bipartisan arrangement would have lent the ANC in a difficult position where it would have to share the executive equally with one political party. And then will be subjected to all manner of strange policy proposals here, including that remove your own president. If we were to say they must remove their president, would they agree? So why must we be allowed to do that? We didn't agree when President Zuma was our president. Not because of some blind love for the person, but as a principal thing that you can't self-liquidate in order to appease a political opponent. By the way, these GNU partners are our political opponents.
Yeah.
They remain so. It doesn't mean we are engaged in an existential battle with all of them. Our intention is to overrun them, just like their intention is to liquidate us. So it's mutually assured destruction that is not triggered because we all need to hold hands in order for progress. But if you turn your head and look the other way, they will pull the trigger. Yeah. It's like what is that thing, Russian roulette? You can't turn your eye. You must keep the gun pointed forward because if you turn, they are going to fire. So we are strategically alert. We will remain strategically alert, but we are not going to dance to the tune of our opponents who want us to make strategic mistakes in order to appease them.